something in my relationship for once.
Hold up. Chrissy, that's not a way for you supposed to treat somebody's mother.
I'm not marrying you.
You as a selfish bitch. That's how I feel.
Oh, and what are you?
As he prepared to discuss a painful chapter in his life, Jim Jones sat down for a private and introspective interview. He knew that this was a topic that many people had been speculating about for years, the day he slapped his fiancée, Chrissy Lampkin. But he had avoided discussing it in public for so long because he was ashamed of what had happened. Now, he felt it was time to explain what really happened and why things went out of control. It was a decision that he deeply regretted, a moment that had plagued him ever since Jim started his story by describing the growing hostilities between Chrissy and his sister Rashid Jones. Jim claims that it began with a severe accusation made by Chrissy that Rashid had stolen money from her, and the accusation was sufficient to launch a firestorm. Chrissy was confident that Rashid had stolen the money, but Jim found it challenging to believe it because he thought he knew his sister well and couldn't think that she would betray him in this way. The stressful environment in their home was caused by Rashid, who was responsible for the missing funds. Jim was in a difficult situation where he was torn between two women who meant so much to him. Chrissy, his fiancée, was hurt, defensive, and unwilling to change their positions, and Rashid, his sister, was someone he had grown up with and implicitly trusted. It felt like Jim was being pulled apart from the inside out. Jim remembered the arguments that erupted between Chrissy and Rashid. They were loud, emotional, and full of accusations. The situation became volatile, and he became more and more frustrated by his incapacity to mediate between them. He felt trapped, unable to find peace between the sister he had always supported and the woman he loved, and every attempt he made to calm the situation only intensified the tensions. Then came the day that everything changed. Jim vividly recalled the dispute that got out of hand faster than he could have imagined. Chrissy was very upset that day, and as her rage flared, she lashed out, accusing Rashid of taking the money once more. Rashid retaliated by defending herself against the charges. Jim, who was positioned between them, attempted to clarify the situation once more, but Chrissy persisted in pressing the matter because emotions were running too high. Something inside Jim cracked, causing his emotions to become unmanageable. In the midst of the argument, Jim raised his hand and slapped Chrissy. The moment his hand touched her, he realized the enormity of what he had done. He had never imagined himself capable of such a thing. The shame hit him immediately, and time seemed to freeze, and all he could feel was regret. The room fell silent after the slap, the weight of what had just happened sinking in for everyone present. Jim would never forget the look of astonishment, hurt, and betrayal on Chrissy's face. He had crossed a line that should never be crossed, and the revelation that followed was heartbreaking. Jim battled with the fallout from his actions. The incident swiftly gained widespread attention, making headlines and being discussed on social media. Everyone had an opinion, but nobody knew the whole story or the mental pain that had preceded it. Jim was deeply sorry for what he had. Jim also acknowledged that the accusations against Rashid were never completely cleared up to this day. It was never clear whether the money had been stolen or if it was all a misunderstanding. The tension between Chrissy and Rashid never really went away, and it left a lasting wound in the family. However, Jim felt that the most important thing was to mend his relationship with Chrissy, with whom he worked hard. It was difficult, and the path to healing was drawn out and agonizing, to work painstakingly to mend the trust that had been broken that day. Looking back, Jim expressed profound regret for his actions. He realized more than ever how easily emotions could get out of control and how a fit of rage could cause irreparable harm. Jim hoped that by sharing his story, others would learn from his mistakes and refrain from making the same decisions he did. Jim knew that no amount of explanation could make the past go away, but he was resolute to improve, learn from the experience, and make sure that it never occurs again. The incident had been a painful and regretful chapter in Jim's life, but it also taught him the value of forgiveness, accountability, and controlling one's emotions before they cause irreversible harm. At this point, the most crucial thing was to move on, become a better man, and keep improving his relationships with the people he loved.
Here with a smile on your face, like everything is a joke too. Your mother was getting a massage, and Zeke was getting a lap dance in my backyard. Why? Because you make them feel like...
Days went by, and the strain only increased. Jim remembered the disputes that erupted between Chrissy and Rashid. They were loud, emotional, and filled with accusations. The situation got tense, and he became more and more upset at his incapacity to mediate between them every time. His attempts to defuse the situation only appeared to fan the flames, leaving him feeling helpless to make amends between the sister he had always stood up for and the woman he loved. Then came the day that everything changed, and Jim remembered the argument that got out of hand. When Chrissy was especially irate that day, she lashes out, accusing Rashid of taking the money once more. Rashid retaliated, defending herself against the charge. Jim, who was standing between them, attempted to defuse the situation once more, but her emotions were running too high. Chrissy kept pressing the matter. When something inside Jim snapped, his emotions were uncontrollable. The frustration, rage, and helplessness culminated in a split-second decision that Jim would live to regret. Throughout the intensity of the argument, when Jim's palm touched Chrissy, he recognized the magnitude of what he had done. He had never thought he was capable of such a thing, and a shame struck him instantly. Time seemed to stop, and all he could feel was regret.
Chrissy does have that mean little streak, you know, and I...
Come in.
Hi.
How you doing?
How are you?
Jim recalled Chrissy's expression of astonishment, hurt, and betrayal all at once. He would never forget that he had crossed a line that should never have been crossed. The room grew silent after the slap, the weight of what had just transpired sinking in for everyone present. Be crossed, and the subsequent revelation was heartbreaking. Jim grappled with the fallout from his actions. The incident swiftly gained widespread attention, making headlines and being discussed on social media. Everyone had an opinion, but none was fully aware of the tale. They were unaware of the emotional upheaval that preceded that point, or even though Jim deeply regretted what he had done. He realized that no amount of background could excuse his behavior because he had harmed a loved one, and he would have to live with it. Additionally, acknowledged that the charges against Rashid had never been completely settled, and that it was still uncertain whether the money had been stolen or if there had been a misunderstanding. The animosity between Chrissy and Rashid never really went away, leaving a lasting injury in the family, but for Jim, healing his relationship with Chrissy was the most important thing. He put in a lot of effort to mend the trust that had been broken that day, but it wasn't simple, and the healing process was drawn out and agonizing.
Let me control something in my relationship for once.
Hold up. Chrissy, that's not a way for you to treat somebody's mother.
I'm not marrying you.
You are the selfish bitch. That's how I feel.
Reflecting on the past, Jim expressed sincere regret for what he had done, realizing more than ever how easily feelings might get out of hand and how a fit of rage may result in irreparable harm. By telling his experience, he'd hoped that people would note his faults and refrain from making the same decisions he did. Jim was aware that there was no way to justify what occurred, but he was resolved to improve, learn from it, and make sure that it didn't happen again. The incident had been a difficult period in Jim's life, one that was full of sorrow and regret, but it was also a lesson in responsibility, forgiveness, and how crucial it is to control one's emotions before they create Jim irreversible harm. He had to go on to become a better guy and keep improving his relationships with the people he loved.